Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Out Today and What I Missed for January 23rd, 2025. Today we have 4 brand new albums out today and 11 that I missed along the way, making for 15 albums that I'm covering this week, and 35 in total in 2026 so far. So let's get right into it. First up, we have Crystal Lake with The Weight of Sound. The 6th album in 24 years from this Japanese metalcore band is pushing the boundaries of their sound while delivering everything that you would expect from the band. No 2 songs on this one sounds the same, and it expands upon their ongoing sound in both directions. While it gets heavy, it obliterates everything in its path with near deathcore elements in its breakdowns and tones. When it gets lighter, there are some emotionally impactful moments that the band does like no other. And when you have guest appearances from Jesse Leach of Killswitch Engage, Carl of Misery Signals, David of Side of the Swarm, and Taylor Barber of 7 Hours After Violet, and of course Mike Terry of Fire of the Gods and Volumes. From those appearances alone, you can tell the diversity of sound that's going on. Overall, this is an album that strikes hard, but knows when to pull back for emotional moments, showcasing what metalcore in 2026 can truly be all about. Now we have Elwood Stray with Descending. Elwood Stray showcases both sides of their metalcore and post-hardcore elements here with ease on the sophomore album and expands upon both the heavy and melodic moments. The band doubles down on what works best on their debut album, but strays from the path just slightly to incorporate some new elements that pushes the band's sound, but never losing what makes them winning over fans time and time again. The riffs are infinitely catchy, the choruses are as sing-along as possible, and when it gets heavy, the pits will cause in the live setting will be huge. This is easily for anyone who enjoys the likes of And Is Okay, Dead Eyes, Awake the Dreamer, and Bad Omens. Metalcore is off to a great start in 2026, and albums like Descending from Elwood Stray are going to be mainstays for the year. And now we have new Miserable Experience with Gild the Lily. When you have past and present members of bands like Revocation, Rivers of Nile, and Rosetta, your first thought is not that they would be making a dark, alternative synth rock album, but that's what happens here with the 3rd album of this now full-fledged band. You can tell everyone a part of this album knows how to play their role in the music, as it feels crafted in a way that doesn't feel like a side project or something to do in your free time. This feels like the music comes first, and whether they're channeling their early day love of Nine Inch Nails, placing Mellotron to make Opeth and Porcupine Tree fans happy, or making sad music for the Radiohead and Jeff Buckley variety. This is a varied album with every song fitting like a glove. This won't be for everyone who checks out my list, but if you can appreciate a band who's known for having members who can do post-metal, tech death, progressive death metal, etc., showing a different side of their personality, check out what New Miserable Experience is all about. And finally, for brand new albums out today, we have Textures with Genotype. The Dutch prog metal band has returned after a bit of a hiatus and has put out an album that feels like a rejuvenated spark for the band and embarks on a new chapter. The band is always known for being one of the first bands to really showcase the progressive metalcore gen sound, being heavily inspired by Meshuggah and other bands of that style. But after some soul searching, the band feels like they are born anew with a still proggy sound, but exploring more of the melodies, harmonies, and dare I say mainstream sounds of Genotype. While the album still goes all over the place, Textures feels like they are more at home with bands like The Contortionist, Leprous, and The Ocean, and in all honesty, after many repeated listens, this was the right call to make. Rather than feeling like they're trying to retread water, they are exploring what is possible and still having hints of what the band used to be in albums and easily winning over new fans. While I can understand if longtime fans aren't going to want an album like this, I say just give it a proper spin or two. It'll start to click with you if you give it some time, especially if you enjoy the album drawing circles. Sometimes you have to reroute to remain, just like the In Flames album, and it would have been easy to come back and just write another album of the typical Texture style for the nostalgia trip, but I appreciate their new path, and I'm all here for it. Give it time, and it might just work for you as well. And now for everything that I missed along the way, starting with Cold Night for Alligators with All That's Left. 4 albums into this band, straight out of Denmark, and the band continues to push the boundaries of their sound and still make it as catchy as possible. With their latest album, the band blends heavy prog elements, alternative quirkiness, poppy sad boy elements, and the overall sense of cinematic sounds that makes this album like no other. This feels like the soundtrack to a very dark and demented album that is yet to be made, but really should go into production soon. While this may be a little too left of center for some, for others, this is album of the year worthy in every sense of the phrase. If you enjoy the likes of Vola, Earthside, Royal Sorrow, and yes, even the dreaded Sleep Token, give Cold Night for Alligators your proper attention. This is an album that should be heralded at the end of 2026 and beyond. And now for everything that I missed along the way, starting with Cold Night for Alligators with All That's Left. 4 albums into this band, straight out of Denmark, and the band continues to push the boundaries of their sound and still make it as catchy as possible. With their latest album, the band blends heavy prog elements, alternative quirkiness, poppy sad boy elements, and the overall sense of cinematic sounds that makes this album like no other. This feels like the soundtrack to a very dark and demented album that is yet to be made, but really should go into production soon. While this may be a little too left of center for some, for others, this is album of the year worthy in every sense of the phrase. If you enjoy the likes of Vola, Earthside, Royal Sorrow, and yes, even the dreaded Sleep Token, give Cold Night for Alligators your proper attention. This is an album that should be heralded at the end of 2026 and beyond. Now we have Exxûl with Sealed Into None. This is a band that's simply epic. The debut album from this Canadian band is a welcome treat for anyone who enjoys the 80s epic sound but wants it updated for 2026. And what feels like an unholy mix of Candlemass, Crimson Glory, Crypt Sermon, and Early Day Fate's Warning is a combination I never would have expected, but I am falling in love with this album every time that I put this one on. The production feels like pure 1986 in every conceivable way, and the songwriting hits that power, progressive, doom, and classic metal sides with such ease and finesse. I would be shocked if this band doesn't explode into the stratosphere this year. This hits everything that you love and none of the fluff. To say this is a contender for album of the year for me is a complete understatement. It's everything that I love rolled into one, and I can't wait to follow what they do in the future. Next up is Polaris Express with Drifting Through Voids. What a thrilling album, combining the best elements of thrash metal, progressive metal, and just straight up heavy metal in what feels like an unholy mix of Voivod, Vector, and Cynic. When the album gets fast and heavy, it gets truly fast and heavy, feeling like it's slingshotting you across the universe. When it slows down just enough, it allows you to enjoy a beautiful view of everything that's around you. With a production style that is pure 90s progressive death metal, it feels rich and clear. At 10 tracks and nearly an hour long, this won't be everyone's cup of tea, but if you love sci-fi, progressive thrash metal, and you need it to reign supreme, I argue, who is possibly going to top Polaris Express in 2026? Coming up next is Cosmos with an album title that will make you understand that I never took French in high school, L'Astre de la Désirance. I hope I got that right. The 7th album from this one-man French outfit is my first experience with the band, and it's an otherworldly feel that hits both on the mysteries of the universe and the frailty of being alone. With a bleak production style and songwriting that grips you, this is a 5-track, 38-minute exploration of the idea of longing for something or someone that is no longer here, and the concept it hits is expertly done. Hitting this mix of early day Alcest, middle era Opeth, the progressive death metal era, and the occasional Bluntas Nordnod, this is an album that captures that atmospheric black metal sound, the occasional death metal, and the avant-garde moments to make this a truly unique listen. But also, it's a universally relatable theme. Now we have Mariana's Rest with The Bereaved. Mariana's Rest has been on my radar since their 3rd album, 2021's Fata Morgana, and it hasn't left my side since. Now with their 5th album, the band is continuing to explore their blend of melodic death doom, with nods of elements of melodic death metal and funeral doom, to make this one of the most depressing but cathartic listens of 2026. Much like the album title implies, this is an album of mourning, retrospective, and the inevitability of having to move on, and there isn't anyone alive who hasn't had to experience something similar. If you love this genre, this is required listening. If you're not familiar with it, go in with caution, especially if you're having a good day, as this one will drag you down, but at the same time, these emotions are very much needed. If you enjoy the likes of Insomnium, Swallow the Sun, My Dying Bride, and In Shine, Mariana's Rest has released another tearjerker that is more than worthy of your time. This is melodic death doom done to perfection. Now we have Servitude with Smoke and Mirrors. The debut album from the Swedish progressive metal band is one that connects with that classic 90s sound of the genre and mixes it up with the mid-2000s prog in a very hard-hitting mix of Symphony X and Opeth, with newer bands like Lost Sanctuary and Walls of Babylon. The production feels like a mid-2000s prog metal album, and that is a great thing. The songwriting knows when to get proggy, when to get heavy, and when to write for the song, which is not always the case in this style. This is a fantastic approach to prog, and it feels like a great first album to check out if you've never heard this style before, but want to see how it's influenced bands in the current day. Everything you love about progressive metal is here in all 8 songs and almost 57 minutes of music. It's palatable, and it'll be stuck in your head for days. It reminds me of why I fell in love with the genre almost 25 years ago. Now we have Soen with Reliance, 7th albums into the Swedish prog metal band's career, and they continue to evolve their sound with every release. With Reliance, the vocals hit the hardest they've ever hit. The music has become less proggy over time, but has this fine balance of prog and mainstream appeal, and the production is simply flawless. Every song on this one is an earworm, whether it gets heavier, proggier, or more somber. It will live rent-free in your head. The band refines and improves, and I could easily make the argument that this is their finest album to date. They have found their sound, embraced it, and continue to show what is possible with it. This is the kind of prog metal that speaks to me in 2026, and I'm so happy Soen is doing it with such authenticity. If you need a mix of Leprous, Catatonia, and Riverside, check out what Soen is doing in 2026 in all their glory. Next up is a band name that I'm going to try my best to get right, as I can think of a few pronunciations for this. Upior, with Forefathers Eve, Redemption. The sophomore album, and first in a two-part album, with Forefathers Eve, Damnation coming out April 3rd, is a sonic blast of symphonic blackened death metal that we need right now. It combines the brutality of Flesh God Apocalypse and what they set the standard for, while adding elements of Crack Ingrid, Demi Borgir, and Cradle of Filth into a grandiose sound that makes for an album that feels like a symphony from the depths of hell. If you don't like segue tracks, this could be a deal breaker, as there's several in this one, but I've never had an issue with that. It's a nice break from the storm. Overall, the band has every chance of making the best symphonic blackened death metal album of the year, especially between both releases, as it was really smart to separate them into two, give you the first course now, and the next one in a couple months to leave you wanting more in the process. This is absolutely spectacular, and if you love this genre, you'll have to agree. And finally today we have Valiant Sentinel with Netherrealm. You wouldn't believe how many times it took for me to get that and not say Netherrealm like Mortal Kombat. The sophomore album from this Greek band channels their love of heavy power metal and creates an album that strikes hard with every pounding moment. The production on this one is mesmerizing in all the right ways, and the songwriting, knowing when to go full force and when to let the melodies and harmonies shine, feeling like a grand mix of Blind Guardian and Rage, making for a style that hits as hard in 1996 as it does in 2026. Sometimes you just want an album to rip your face off from beginning to end, and that's exactly what Valiant Sentinel has accomplished with Netherrealm. If you want heavy power metal, check this one out right now. And there you go, folks, another 15 albums done, 35 done so far, 33 that only technically count for 2026, as I did 2 for December, and that doesn't count for my 2026 album of the year list, but I digress. What do you think? Did I cover some good albums? Did I cover some bad albums? Anything you want to check out? Anything that I might have missed? And trust me, there's plenty I've missed so far. Please let me know down below. And of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, hype, all of that good stuff. As of recording, we're almost at 2,000 subscribers. I'm at 1993. Let's get that extra 7 if we haven't by this time. And thank you so very much for doing so. Make sure to come back next week as we do our final week of coverage for January 2026, as we do Out Today and What I Missed for January 30th, 2026. Until then, this is Josh Runquist for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel saying, embrace the skullet.